A conversational pattern interrupt is a technique that allows you to make people agree on things they would have just never agreed upon otherwise. It is somehow the art of introducing a shock into the conversation to get people's attention and to make them listen carefully to what you say.
Mr. Sims, you are a cover-up artist and you are a liar.
But not a snitch!
Excuse me?
No, I don't think I will.
Now, there are certain clever, subtle ways of introducing a pattern interrupt in a conversation, and there are some more brutal, if not outrageous ways of doing that.
You almost got us killed out there.
You know the Colombian army is moving in.
Excuse me?
It was my idea to send you in as a decoy. They liked the idea.
Also called the headbutt interrupt, but not really something I would recommend for long-term lasting relationships or long-term friendships in general. Basically, in conversational hypnosis, one of the basic keys, the most important keys, is to get and hold people's attention. Because you see, in most conversations you have all day long, most people don't really listen, or you have part of their attention, but part of their attention is also drifting into their worries, their thoughts, all the preconceived assumptions they have about you, and they don't really give you their full attention. Part of that is social media, constantly numbing themselves into their phone whenever they are in the subway, because they can't stay with their own thoughts for a minute. But then this becomes a habit, especially with ADHD people, and they never really are there in front of you. They are partly there, and they are partly inside their own head thinking about something that has nothing to do with the conversation at hand. And initially, the thing that allowed me to introduce this idea of cutting their trail of thoughts and getting their attention and understanding how I can shift the conversation toward my outcome with this or that person was to figure out, understand this concept of the chain of states. I think I got that from Ross Jeffries in one of his really old manuals or videos. Basically, you gotta meet people where they are. Meet them in the state they are into. And this chain of states is just an example. It may not be exactly this one you are dealing with the people you have trouble convincing in your daily life or your clients eventually, but it is a very good example. And it made me have many quantum leaps in my own communication skills personally, because I figured out too often, like in sales, for example, in many beginners in sales, they are trying to close somebody, and closing somebody is when you are at the end of this phase. You already have their full attention, they are really agreeing, they have understood your point of view, they are now more appeased if they were anxious at first. When you are at the end, yes, you can go for the close, you can get into a more direct style of speaking. In the beginning, with somebody who is not even paying attention, who is not even listening, or who is just putting on you their own preconceived assumptions of, oh yeah, this person is just trying to sell me something, why would I even listen? When they are trapped in their own hypnotic trance, somehow their own negative trance, there is no point in trying to prove them something or show them the argument or anything. They are just not there yet mentally to agree on what you say. So developing calibration skills allowed me to figure out, okay, this person I'm talking to right now, where are they? Are they already at the phase where they're really agreeing and really receptive to what I'm saying? Like their eyebrows are much more lifted up, their voice is much more agreeable to hear. Otherwise, if they are just closed-minded, they don't really want to listen, they're not even receptive to anything I'm saying, then I need to first lead them toward a more receptive, positive state. Usually you do that slowly, step by step. There are many conversational techniques and NLP language patterns to help you go through this chain of states, this one or any other one. However, the concept of the pattern interrupt is that it is a shortcut that allows you to cross all those intermediate steps when you do it correctly, and you jump right away toward something much more advanced, where you have their full attention, you have as much agreement and attention from them as you have with a trusted family member or a close friend you have known for years. And that is also something I discuss quite heavily into the PDF you can download in the description, where you see, based on what the person is saying, based on the kind of resistance you are encountering, what type of specific language can you use, what type of sleight of mouth patterns can you use, use specifically to get them where you want to go. And overall, the specific techniques that allow you to create a pattern interrupt, where you are interrupting their trail of thoughts and you cut their ongoing expectations and you make them agree on something they were not agreeing on before, or you make them much more receptive to the change you want to produce in their own headspace, with their own limiting beliefs and all of that. The main technique is basically more non-verbal than really verbal. It's more about taking a very strong stance, assertive stance, a dominant stance, even sometimes a bit aggressive stance, non-verbally. It doesn't really matter that much what you say, the words, but it's more the overall non-verbal stance you are taking. Instead of being passive and reactive like most people are, unfortunately, even people who have very interesting things to say, but since they are not taking any stance non-verbally, because they think of themselves as somebody who doesn't really deserve to be listened to, or they have some shame, I'm not such a good person, or like I haven't achieved that, I'm not tall, I'm not this, I'm not that. So people don't really allow themselves the right to be authoritative and assertive into a conversation. But so in the end, it is going to be about the voice tonality mostly, that is going to change and be much more assertive on a certain point somehow. Or like with the eye contact you make, or maybe you are going to make a step forward and like take more space with your whole body for like a split second, just at the moment where you want them to shut their mouth internally, sometimes even physically in the real world. Sometimes it is just about their trail of thoughts, noticing how you can make them shut down their inner voice and respect you for what you say. Some brutal words that can be used, but with a subtle way, are words like stop, which is not brutal, but it's more like a very authoritative word. When you start to explain how this person who was listening to you stopped because you said something, and now they had their full attention focused on you. So at this moment, when I say stop, with really the whole nonverbal behavior that goes with it, because now I'm focusing on this, and when that person stopped and listen carefully, or you might use words like insults, literally. When that person started to shut the fuck up and listen to me, that way your brain, some part of your brain is like, whoa, what's happening here? Even if I'm not talking to you, I'm talking about a person. But on the nonverbal aspect, there is still a part of your brain that is taking that as, whoa, is he telling me to shut the fuck up right now? And that is such a shock. If I haven't been insulting in any way so far, I have been pretty polite. If right off the bat, I'm saying something like that, like, and this motherfucker shut the fuck up because I said this. Some part of your brain is starting to reevaluate, well, what's happening? On the conscious level, you know I'm not talking to you directly, you know that. On the unconscious level, some part of your mind is like, whoa, 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 whoa. And this creates a shock. Like, what's happening? When there is a shock, the brain is calm and stops over-intellectualizing because it needs to recover and figure out what's happening here. Obviously, therefore, in some context, you may say that directly if you have enough authoritative power into that situation. If you are the boss in a company, maybe you can allow yourself to say that. Or if you're only talking to people who won't have any impact in your life anyway, in your social relationships or anything, maybe you can allow yourself to speak like that directly, like I tell you to shut the fuck up or fuck you or whatever. In most contexts of life, you won't have the freedom to say that directly without facing some really negative consequences later. So a much more clever, a much more subtle way of doing that is how I have demonstrated it right here, was by quoting something else. Quoting or telling a story, either of somebody else. Like, I watched this documentary where the police officer was trying to get the attention of people and they were just not listening to him because they thought they were more important than him in this environment. At some point, he seemed like very insecure, but at some point, he stood up for himself and he said, "Now you little piece of shit, you're going to listen." And I'm not talking to you directly, but because I tell the story of a police officer who doesn't exist. But when I say that and I look at you in the eyes, there is a part of your brain that is really going to focus on me at this moment. So it can be the story of somebody else, or it can be a story or a quote of myself in the past. And I have used that personally in my life. You can watch this video for an example where I have used that personally into my real conversation I had back in the day. I don't even think I tell exactly how I said that in the video, but there was a moment in the conversation where I really used a very kind of insulting or like very confrontational words just to get people to shut up, because I couldn't bear anymore all the things they were talking about. And that is just the non-verbal aspect. But with this non-verbal understanding, you can fit that into anything. Anything you want. It doesn't need to be too provocative. You can adapt that to the people you have in front of you and to the whole situation. Social intelligence here is even more important than the specific words you say. Once you have a thorough understanding of, okay, who are the people around? What can I allow myself to say? How far can I go and how far not to go? Once you have this ground foundation set up, then you can get into the more specific detailed language patterns you need to use to get to the final outcome. The pattern interrupt was just to open the space and make them listen. Then you have all the language patterns that you can find down below in the description on the small PDF you can download right away for free. You can have all the language patterns needed so that when people, once you have their attention, you can know what to say to whom at which moment based on their behaviors, based on their personalities. You don't interact the same way with a full-blown narcissist and with an agreeable person who is just lost about his life. It's not the same way to interact with those two people. There are very specific manners to handle the conversation in both of those examples and many others. So you can download that if you want, and I will see you soon in the next video.